Hello and welcome to Missed Checkpoints, the Video Game Book Club podcast. Today we're discussing Metroid Prime. I'm your host Marqus, and joining me today as always are the homies. First up we got Greg.
Hold on.
What's up, man? And last but not least we got the homie Dante.
Reporting in.
This is obviously, you know how we do it. We're always late. So this is my game for the month of March. So I will be kicking us off. Metroid Prime is a first-person action-adventure game developed by Retro Studios and published by Nintendo for the GameCube. It is the fourth main installment in the Metroid franchise and the first game in the series to use 3D graphics in a first-person perspective. Since exploration takes precedence over combat, Nintendo classifies the game as a first-person adventure rather than first-person shooter. The game was a collaboration between Retro's staff in Austin, Texas, and Japanese Nintendo employees, including producers Kensuke Tanabe and Shigeru Miyamoto, who suggested the project after visiting Retro's headquarters in 2000. And I got some history here. So, Retro Studios was started by Jeff Spangenberg, a self-taught programmer who skipped college to pursue a programming career. He originally was the lead designer for Punk Development, the development company of the publisher Razorsoft, which was one of the earliest publishers for the Sega Genesis. Their relationship lasted only a year and ended in 1991, and shortly afterwards Punk Development went defunct, and Jeff started a new studio composed of mostly former Punk Development, which he named Iguana Entertainment. Iguana eventually was acquired in 1995 by Acclaim, but over their lifespan, they released games such as Arrow the Acrobat, Batman Forever, NFL Quarterback Club, and probably the series we've all heard of is NBA Jam. Spangenberg would be fired in 1998. In the following year, he founded development company Retro Studios, and Metroid Prime is their very first game. Metroid Prime is the first game in the Metroid Prime saga, which takes place between the original Metroid and Metroid 2 Return of Samus. Like previous games in the series, it has a sci-fi setting in which players control bounty hunter and series protagonist Samus. How do you say her name? I've never heard it said out loud. Is it Aran?
I think so.
Samus Aran. It's always, I've never heard anybody say the whole thing. The story follows Samus as she battles the space pirates and their biological experiments on the planet Talon IV. The gameplay involves...
I'm pretty sure that's a 4, bro.
Okay, Roman numeral 4. Okay,
Yes.
Talon 4. I didn't know. Again, it wasn't said out loud, so just reading. The gameplay involves solving puzzles to reveal secrets, platforming, and shooting foes with the help of a lock-on mechanic that allows for circle strafing while staying aimed at the enemy. Samus must travel through the world of Talon 4, searching for 12 Chozo artifacts while collecting power-ups, weapons, and armor upgrades that let her reach new areas. Items must be collected in a specific order. For example, you can't access a certain area until you find a certain beam or a certain upgrade to open the door. Players are incentivized to explore to find upgrades such as ammo packs and extra health. The HUD simulates the inside of Samus's helmet and features a radar display, a map, ammo count, health meter, charge meter, danger meter. The game also introduces a hint system that provides the players with clues about ways to progress through the game. Metroid Prime was released in North America on November 18th, 2002, on the GameCube, and the following year in Japan and Europe. It received universal praise and commercial success, selling over 2.8 million units worldwide. It won numerous Game of the Year awards and is regarded by many critics and gamers as one of the greatest video games ever made, and is one of the highest rated games on Metacritic. I think as of today, I saw it was rated, it was 97 on Metacritic, which is not bad. One day following its North America release, Nintendo released the Game Boy Advance game Metroid Fusion, marking these games as the return of the Metroid series after an 8-year hiatus following Super Metroid. And then, in addition to the Metroid Prime main series, Retro Studio has also developed all the Metroid Prime spin-offs. So there's like a Metroid Prime Hunters game for DS, a Metroid Prime pinball game for DS, and the Metroid Prime trilogy for Wii. They developed Mario Kart 7 for the 3DS, and they also revitalized another toss-aside Nintendo franchise with Donkey Kong Country. So they developed Donkey Kong Country Returns and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. And as of 2019, it was announced that they'd be taking over development of Metroid Prime 4 from Bandai Namco and restarting development because the previous 2 years of development under Bandai had not met Nintendo standards. So,
I
yeah.
completely forgot they were doing another one.
Yeah, that's why it was the Metroid Prime Saga instead of the Metroid Prime Trilogy, because they were doing a fourth game. So I actually, initially or normally when we do these things, we do an intro and then we go around and ask everybody's background. I just wanted to say that I had no idea about the history of Metroid. Yeah, it's wild. Not like a crazy wild, but just like it's very interesting. So now, having said that, let me kick it to you, Dante. What is your background with Metroid?
So it's hard for me to actually piece together the order I played the Metroid games simply because, like, personally, I feel like Metroid wasn't a very popular franchise in the West until kind of maybe it's me being an N64 kid, but I feel like a lot of people didn't know who Samus was when they first saw her in Super Smash back in the day.
Yeah.
But I'd like to say it was either really it's a real toss up between Super Metroid, this, and Fusion as far as which one I played first. However, I have played all those. I've played the newest one, Dread. I played the 2 remake for the 3DS as well as the fan remake of 2 on the PC. And there's one more, Zero Mission. I've played Zero Mission on GBA. And Hunters on the DS.
From my understanding, at least it sounds like when I listen to podcasts now, this has sparked this up because of Metroid Dread's re-release or recently being released, but the West was the region that enjoyed Metroid. It's not very popular in Japan.
Yes, but at the same time, it wasn't like a breakout Nintendo franchise.
It doesn't do numbers here, but it does better here than it does in the West, or in Japan, because like I said, this game came out November 2002, and it didn't even come out for another year in Japan or Europe. So it was only in North America for a full year, which is wild to me.
It doesn't surprise me. I'm almost kind of surprised it even got the port to Japan, because Japan is kind of notorious for not really, at least back in the day, not being very apt to first-person games.
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of first-person shooters just never got ported over there because the whole market share of FPS games was super low.
Yeah, but it's just wild though, because it was like Miyamoto had the foresight, and like he wanted to work with a Western developer to develop this game, but then it was like only supposed to be for a Western audience, because I imagine had it not got the accolades and garnered the attention that it did, it would have maybe only been a US exclusive or North America exclusive game, which is wild to me. Because it makes it seem like this little side project. What about you, Greg? What's your background with Metroid?
So like I don't think I ever played the original one on NES. I think I just kind of saw it in passing, like probably saw it over at a friend's house or something. Same with Super Metroid. I had a Super Nintendo, but I just never was like into the franchise like that. And I think I want to say I played Fusion, which that was the first one that came out on GBA, right? I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think I played Fusion first, then I played Prime. So those were my two, and then I think I played a little bit of Zero Mission, and yeah, I don't think I ever got around to Prime 2 or 3. But
Oh shoot, I did play those. I did play Prime 2 and Prime 3.
Okay. Yeah, I actually have the chronology up too, but just to go on my background, I didn't play Metroid growing up. I think my we kept our boxes for our game consoles, so I remember growing up seeing we had the Super Nintendo with that was released with Donkey Kong, so it was like the combo thing. And on the back it had some previews or whatever for other games. And I remember like thinking the Super Metroid graphics looked cool. And then it was like years later when I was in high school, one of my people that I rode the bus with, I don't know, I think I bought Super Metroid off of him for like $5 or $10. And I played it then, but I didn't get super far into it. I did get Metroid on when I think it was Game Boy Advance started releasing classic NES games, and so I got the original Metroid that came out on GBA, but I couldn't make any progress in that game, and I was like, not here for the when you leave a screen and go back, the enemies respawn. Like, I just was like, I'm not here for that. So, I was over it. And then I didn't end up playing Super Metroid for real until like college, and I beat it. I did get Metroid Prime Trilogy, and I remember playing Metroid Prime, but I don't remember getting really far in it. And I had thought, like, if you would ask me before we played this game, I would have said, yeah, I beat Metroid Prime, but like, there was so much in this game that I played that I was like, oh, I don't remember this, don't remember this, don't remember this. So I'd only touched the first game, and I lent it to my wife's younger brother, and he lost it. So I had to rebuy this game on GameCube, and I had a whole ordeal with that because dude sent me the wrong game.
He sent you the sequel.
yeah. I purchased this game on eBay. And I got it like, a week later, and the dude had sent me Metroid Prime 2 instead of Metroid Prime 1. And I was like, bro, what's up? What happened? And then he tried to stiff me and just be like, well, whatever. But I'm like, no, I wanted the game I wanted.
like,
but
sure?
Yeah, what'd you say?
he's like, "Are you sure, man? Sure
Yeah, and then he was like, all right, well, I'll give you $5 off if you send it back to me. I'm like, all right, cool. And then when he lists when he gets the game back, he lists it for $5 more. I'm like, fam, this is not the discount that you think it is.
I mean, that is kind of slick. You gotta kind of appreciate that hustle as scummy.
And then he was like, well, if I don't sell it at this, then I'm not going to make any money. I'm like, bro, you sold it like that beforehand. And I just told him, I was under the assumption you were going to give me $5 off. If you're going to make me pay the same amount, that's cool. But like, at least be, like upfront about it. But I ended up getting it from him. So it all worked out. And, as far as the chronology, so I think I said in my intro that this game is the second game in the series or in the order. So it goes Metroid, the original Metroid game. Metroid Zero Mission is just a remake of that game, so it's basically the same game. And then Metroid Prime Hunters, which that was one of those DS games I was talking about, and then Metroid Prime 2, 3. I never even heard of this game, Metroid Prime Federation Force, which was a 3DS game.
Is that the shooter?
It looks like it was a. It says this game was further derided for its poor timing, as it was a spin-off title that was announced when the series had been on hiatus since the controversial Metroid Other M. So this game came out in 2016. Like, the cover makes it look like a Power Rangers game.
Is it chibi?
No, it's first person. Like
I could have sworn
it was a 3DS game.
Yeah, this is chibi. It's like, if you look at the character models and stuff, it's very
okay.
cutesy.
I was looking at the Wikipedia page, so just like the cover of the box art and a screenshot of gameplay.
Because I remember seeing this and No, I don't try to let gamer outrage get the best of me.
But you did.
But I was like, I have no interest whatsoever. I didn't like write an angry letter, but at the same time, I was like, I remember being on the boards wherever those boards were at the time, and just being like, yeah, these people might have a point. This does kind of look good.
So we went Metroid / Zero Mission, Prime Hunters, Prime 2, Prime 3, Prime Federation Force, Metroid 2, which is on on the original Game Boy, then Super Metroid, then Other M, then Fusion, and then Dread, which is also a weird thing because they said Dread was a sequel to Fusion, which to me is like, shouldn't you just say Dread is the most recent iteration of Metroid?
Well, since all the Metroids like
Fit between
it's a non-linear series, so they have very much like been like, oh, this is game 1, this is game 3, and this is game 2. So knowing that it's a direct sequel to Fusion makes it very clear.
Sure. It's just like
because I mean, Dread, you even start, I think, with the Fusion suit,
Gotcha.
or at least like the version that you had at the end of Fusion.
It's just wild to think about. These games came out a day within each other, and then there were 7 games that they fit between the two.
Yeah, I can't think of another franchise. I guess the closest thing that I can think of is Black Flag and Rogue for Assassin's Creed, where they did like the next gen version with Black Flag, and then I think Rogue released on the same day, but for the previous gen consoles, or something like that.
Gotcha.
And I mean, even that's a bigger, there's a disparity there, like complete 3D game versus 2D game. There's just like, you don't see that type of synergy is what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that's the history, our history with Metroid. And if for those of you that are at home wondering, we can tell you what Trevor's history is. Or should I save that to
He's
the
probably
end of the
watching on
episode?
Twitch. Let me.
So, hey, Greg.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about our friend Trevor.
All right. What's up?
I feel like since we've been doing this podcast, he's always talked about liking, enjoying Metroid Fusion, right?
Yeah.
And being a fan of the Metroid series.
Okay.
Did you know that
The
was
franchise.
the only Metroid game he's played?
Oh, what'd you say?
He said that he's a big fan of the Metroid series, and the only game he's played is Metroid Fusion.
I mean, maybe that just left such a big, mark on him. He just.
Greg is being peaceful. Me and Dante choose violence. I just was like, I told Trevor, so you mean to tell me and you have played the same amount of Metroid games? Like, because I was just under the assumption that he had played more than one.
Despite having started the franchise even earlier than he did.
Yeah. So I just was like, I don't know if I would say you're a fan of the Metroid franchise and you're just a fan of the Metroid Fusion game, which is still like valid. I was just kind of like, you probably should. It's like me saying I played, and I told him it was like me saying I love tacos, but then I've only had chicken tacos.
Or being like you're a Marvel fan, but you only play Marvel 3, right? Like,
yeah. And I know since then he's played Dread, and I know he 100% Dread and really enjoys it. But I just was like you're like a slice of the whole thing you've only interacted with. How can you say you enjoy everything? But yeah, so we had some discussions about that because I was like, it just doesn't make any sense. I just thought you had more background in this franchise, and
hey, he knows what he likes. He
know what he said. He said,
one.
you know me. I tell you a game is easy or hard within the first 5 minutes of playing it. And I was like, touche. I forgot. But yeah, let's get back on track. So, kind of like what I said, the story, revolves around Samus, and just to set the stage. The game starts off and you get an unidentified distress beacon that's been tracked to a derelict spaceship that's orbiting above Talon 4. And then, Samus is trusty old orange rounded spaceship comes into view, and then you see her kind of jump out of her ship, dock at the deck of the outpost, and she gets out of ship and enters the station. The station is kind of like a complete disarray. There's fires burning everywhere. Several parts are collapsed. There's kind of like weird mutated aliens and tubes all over the place, and the game kind of uses this as a intro like tutorial moment to kind of give you the here's the lay of the controls and everything. And actually, I think the ship is identified as the space pirate ship Orpheon, which was one of the ships that escaped after the fall of Zebes, which was the very end of the first Metroid / Zero mission. So this is like a nod to like this is immediately after the events of the first game. One of the other ships that kept Metroids aboard, and the pirates have resumed experiments with them on planet Talon 4 to create bioweapons. Their repeated mentioning of experimenting on local animal life with the unknown substance called phazon. And then obviously these experiments have kind of gone wrong because a lot of the space pirates on the ship are dead or near dead. And then finally, you come up to like this huge mutated like parasite queen that survived, and you defeat it. The ship's overloads, which starts to destruct sequence, and you have to quickly get out of the ship. You get to a large area, and you meet basically, was it Ridley? Who's like the big bad in the Metroid, one of the big bads, I guess you could say, in the Metroid lore. And I don't remember what happens at the beginning, but you get blasted and an explosion like slams you against the wall. And at this point, like in all Metroid games, you have all your abilities and everything like from the jump. And so this was like one of the first times, I think the only time that I can think of in the 2 games that I've played, where you have everything and you lose it, and there's like a justifiable way. So like you have like once you get blasted against the wall, you see in your HUD that most of your functions of your suit basically start malfunctioning, and so you get left with just a few basic, I think, jump and like your shot. And then you board your ship and you see Ridley fly off on towards Talon 4, and you follow him to the surface of the planet, but lose sight of him, and you have no choice but to land. And that is where the actual game starts with you landing on Talon 4 and hopping out your ship. So what did you guys think of this like intro tutorial section on the space pirate ship Orpheon? I'll start with you, Dante.
I thought it was really well done. It's a completely separate area, and it kind of sets up the context for the game. So you're kind of just investigating and whatnot. And of course, they have the tutorialization in there, but it all kind of makes sense. So it's like, oh, I've got to scan these things, and that teaches you how to scan. And you run into a couple different types of enemies, I'd like to say. And it gives you a, really quick glance to get acclimated with the controls without being super, intrusive, I guess. Like my thing with tutorials is I really prefer, if they're not like off to the side completely, like a skippable thing, that they somehow integrate it, and it's just not like, well, hit A to do this because we told you to. They actually give you like a contextual reason for most of that stuff.
What about you, Greg?
I think it's a pretty well done introduction to the game. It pretty much gives you all the basics, and like Dante was saying, it all seems pretty contextual. It's not like it doesn't seem forced. But yeah, I mean, I didn't have any issues with it. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I agree with you guys. These are my favorite types of tutorials where they like apply it to like actual in-game use, whether instead of it being where you're like in a area where you can't get damaged and you're just beating up like random, I don't know, like punch bags or whatever. Like I like it when you're like actually like in the game experiencing it. And then I really like the setting too, just being on the spaceship. And I mean, I'm not normally a fan of like, you got to get out of this place fast, it's gonna explode. But like even that it was fun in this opening context. So I really did enjoy this. And then moving forward, like when you guys get to Talon, I think you had said you have played this game. Before, I mean, I guess you both have played this game before, right?
Yeah.
When was the last time you guys had played?
Oh, I don't know. It had to have been like, I don't know, 15 years ago or something at this point. It's been a while.
I'd like to say this is a game I go through maybe like every 7-ish years, so probably at the end of college, if I had to guess.
Gotcha.
Was my last time.
I realized I didn't even, like you guys both played emulator like on PC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
GameCube controllers or
No, I just use a Xbox One controller.
Yep.
okay. Did you guys change up your buttons dramatically from your?
No, it works. I think it works better than a GameCube controller.
Yeah, I didn't really switch anything. I was trying to think of anything. I guess the one thing that it doesn't translate as well is like, you know, with the GameCube controller, like the left trigger has like a click. So like,
Yes.
you know, when you would lock on, you would click
Yes.
and then you could like let off a little bit and then click back in to switch the lock on. So like obviously you don't have like that same tactile feel, but I mean it still works the same way. But
Okay, yeah. So one of the things that I struggled with was like I kept having the clicking sound was very annoying, like when I was trying to strafe and just move around. The other thing that I kind of struggled with was the side jumping or side dodge, because you use the A button to charge and the B button is your jump button, and quickly tapping that small button while I was holding down the charge button, for whatever reason, I would say 50%, and I don't know if it's my controller. I mean, it probably was my controller, but like 50% of the time, I didn't tap it fast enough, so I would start jumping instead of side dodging, and that was a pain. I was like one of the few times, like I think most of the time when I'm playing GameCube games, I'm like, yeah, I like the controller. This was one of the few times where I was like, it makes sense that the A button is the charge button, but I wish they were like more of the same size in this particular game.
yeah, I guess that's just kind of like, well, I guess that's like their idea, like the action button. So like they always make sure that's like the main thing. But yeah, I guess it's kind of weird.
So you guys use the bottom button as the charge button, and then
Correct, like the Xbox A button.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, and then
Yeah,
so
and
that
that's
would've-
really convenient because, like, at least the way I hold the controller, I'm holding it right now. I have like, I guess the top joint of my thumb resting on the A, and then the meaty part of my thumb is right on the X. So it's just kind of there.
Yeah, and so like for me, when I was in the middle of the game, I would use the tip of my thumb as the A. But anytime I was like in combat or whatever, I would like kind of slide my thumb up to using like the knuckle, the part that bends, as the charging part, and trying to use the side of my thumb for the B. And
yeah, I think that's how I remember I had to play it on GameCube.
And then, like, I just felt like my playing this game too. My left index finger got so much stronger than my right, because the amount of time I had to like hit the left button to like lock on and everything, and because the GameCube triggers are so clicky, it was like, this is kind of a noisy game playing.
Not gonna lie, I don't miss that controller.
I like it, but it was a nuisance on this particular game. But yeah, I guess let's go into controls. Further into controls, did you guys have any qualms with the controls, or just not necessarily just with the controller, but just navigating in this world?
There's things that like kind of bug me a little bit, but then I also have to kind of like think like, okay, this game was like made in 2002 or whatever. Right?
Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah.
There's things like I don't find like vertically aiming very easy to do. Like it's just kind of annoying when something's like right above your line sight and you want to get it. You know, there's things like that. There's no real easy way to strafe. Like if you want to strafe and then like set yourself up in a like strafed and turn a little bit. It's like it's kind of annoying doing things like that, but I don't think
Is this
I
like
don't
tank
think.
controls?
Yeah. Well, you kind of. I guess it's kind of like what it is. You miss it not having dual analog, but like it's not a big enough deal where it's like, oh, I'm just dying all the time or just taking a lot of damage in battles because of it. I mean, it can happen a few times, but I don't know. It never became a huge nuisance where I'm like, okay, I really wish this had like dual analog aiming.
Yeah, I think because this game is first person, it's less of an issue than if
Yeah,
it
like
was.
I know we talked about it a little bit in the group chat, but I couldn't imagine playing the Wii version of this game. I just don't like, in my mind, adding the second analog stick would mess things up more than help. So
Well, I don't I wish I hadn't gotten rid of the trilogy. So and this is PSA to anybody listening: if you have this game on trilogy or on the Wii version of the trilogy, it is going for a lot of money on eBay. So hold on to it.
Yeah, I hate
'Cause,
that. I think I sold mine for like $60 or something like
yeah,
that. So
it was.
ridiculous.
I kept seeing auctions go for 150, 170 or something like that. So it was it. And that's with or without cases and stuff like that. So it's worth some money. But yeah, like I wish I remembered what because I don't think it full on. I think the motion control part was only for when you were doing the aiming. Like for me it was holding the right trigger and then you could start moving around. So I feel like with the Wii remote, I think it was when you hold the B button on the back of the remote itself. I feel like that's when they would come into play, but I don't remember for 100% certainty.
does
If
it?
that's working, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, if that's just working like the way I envision, I don't know if it like is as good, but like, man, that seems like so, that would be so much nicer. But that's if it's working the way I'm envisioning it. But it may still just
Yeah,
be like,
I definitely don't think it's like you can use the motion as basically like a second stick. I definitely don't think it was that. I think it was just using it when you're doing
oh, I got
the
you.
aiming, looking up, looking down aspect. I think that's how it worked.
Like out of combat type of.
No, I'm talking about in combat when you would hold it, like if you're
Oh,
standing still and then you're looking up and looking down. That's what I'm talking about with your
see,
with
I
your.
wouldn't like that because then it's like shifting things around just by you moving it.
Gotcha.
And like the lock on in this game is like they designed the game around the lock on, so
Oh, for sure.
it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're having to, really trail an enemy or like
Yeah,
work
yeah.
on your headshot per se. It's just like once you have that left stick in, it's just about getting those shots in when they, sometimes they'll dodge and you have to wait for them to stop or, you'll have to strafe while you're fighting. But
There was
and it's
a
only really annoying with the aerial enemies. That's the
yeah,
really
exactly.
when it becomes an issue. But like for 80% of the game, I would never say it's not huge, but that 20% can be a little annoying sometimes.
I think for me it was like a very, like you said, a very select few parts, and most of the time it was like a minor inconvenience. It was
Yeah.
like when the space pirates like flew up right above you, and having to look up, and I wish you could speed up how quickly you looked when you were stationary. And then I think there was like a shaft like that went up. Those little electricity enemies. I tried to clear them out before I did the spider ball up, but I couldn't get all of them because I couldn't look high enough. And then I think it was the second to last boss. The
Rid-
No, okay, the boss before that. I only wrote down. I think it was the Omega Pirate. I think when you were
That's the
fighting.
one. Oh,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that's the one that like goes invisible after you do like you take down his weak points, or am I thinking of somebody else?
And yeah, and then more of and that one because there's that phase on stuff on the ground.
Yeah.
And what were you about to say?
No, I think that's that fight. Yeah, right.
And yeah, and so like that one, like I wish I could like quickly turn around to see where I was standing at, and like, so, but and that was just like a being super familiar with where the oil spots were on the ground and having to avoid this guy and just like not necessarily knowing my surroundings. Less of a control issue and just more of a me issue.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess we just had kind of different approaches for the aerial enemies. So while you were looking up, a lot of times I would try to find something to climb up. So generally speaking, when I had an aerial enemy, the double jump was my biggest ally. So I would double jump, and then if I needed to adjust from there, I would do the adjustment, and then I'd lock on.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
But I mean, I get it. Like, if you were trying to do that stuff on the ground, it would be frustrating.
Yeah, I'm just an amateur. The only other thing, and this was more so on me, and it's not necessarily the game, but because of the game, the way it was, I didn't do a lot of looking up and down outside of combat. So there was a few times where I was stuck because I wasn't seeing the thing right in front of me. So I think they do a really good job. This game was created with everything like in a way on a flat plane. So like the parts I'm talking about was where you had to shoot the stalactites as platforms and everything like that. And I was like, I don't see anything. I'm not hitting the left trigger because I'm used to using the lock on in combat. So there was a couple times where I felt like I was stuck, and then I'd be like, oh, this is what I was supposed to do. And I kept coming into this room like 3 or 4 times, but not seeing anything and not realizing that the answer was right in front of me. And this mostly because I was like training myself to only use the lock on in combat. And I don't know, like, again, that was more of a me issue. But did you guys run into that ever?
Maybe with... I guess my thing was, normally when I get into a room, the first thing, since I wasn't going for 100% per se, but I was trying to get as much stuff as possible. And the one thing I did look up was like missable scans. So I would always try to scan a room either immediately or after I taken out all the enemies that were shooting me directly.
That actually makes sense, because I'm assuming when you scan something, like you're looking around, you're like, oh, that's something I can interact with.
Yeah, and the thing is, it will automatically kind of, you know how it puts that orange square over anything that's scannable?
Red.
Yeah, so it kind of makes it impossible to miss.
Did you scan a lot, Greg?
Not really. I wasn't going out my way to scan everything, but like if I was in an environment sometimes, because sometimes I wasn't sure if it was part of like a puzzle or anything, so I might just scan something. Like if I thought there was a reason to do it, I was doing it, but I wasn't just doing it.
Yeah. So like I wasn't getting a lot of the story beats or like the space pirate logs and everything. I was mostly like, this thing, like I feel like I'm supposed to use it. Let me go ahead and scan it and see what it says. I was scanning enemies too, so like because like one of the rooms I was thinking of, Dante, was like there was this room with the little electric jellyfish that latch onto you, and then there was also that big like flying, hovering, like kind of sea turtle thing that you could latch onto.
Right.
It was like an ice cave, and then there was 2 stalactites, but I didn't.
This is the one with the missile where you have to shoot the stalactite into the ice below to get the missile.
I think yeah. So I went in there and I scanned the one bad guy, killed it. I scanned the other one, saw, oh, you need a grapple beam. So I was like, well, I don't have the grapple beam yet, therefore I can't move forward in this room. And I completely ignored the stalactites because I was like, oh, clearly, like, I need a grapple before I can come back in here. So I kept going back in that room and like, I don't have the grapple beam yet. Like, what do I do?
Yeah, so I guess just... we had kind of fundamentally different views on how to approach this game, I guess, because, you know, I've had a lot of experience with the series where, you know, this is your first one. So when I see stuff like that, your first inclination is, oh, I'm not ready to be here.
Yep.
My first inclination is, oh, I'm going to need to return here at some point. Mm-hmm. So, and I could see how, like, you could pretty easily get turned around if you're like, oh, I just can't do this room yet, and you start going in, you know, another direction.
Yep. And like, so that was why the hint system was both a blessing and a curse sometimes, because sometimes it was like the hint system was really smart because it was like, hey, we have a, I forgot what the wording was, but like a unknown distress or some type of unknown activity happening here, and it would show you on the map or like where you should be heading, but you didn't necessarily have to head there. I mean, it was like a way to spur you along. But there were times when I couldn't, like, when I didn't have that hint, where I was like, could really use a hint right now, but I don't know how to trigger it. I don't know what I need to do in order to get this hint, so I know where I need to go.
I couldn't figure out what it was, but like what I ended up doing was like if I was lost, I would just leave the game, just sitting there for a while, and eventually it would just give me a hint.
So
But I don't know how long it took, but after like maybe a few minutes or so, like then it'll give you the hint.
the two ways I found out, or at least I think I found out, was like one, if you go on like a area leaving elevator to a new area, that seems to fast forward it. It won't always be instant, but it will make it better. Option number two is quitting the game and coming back in, and normally this game does the thing that a lot of games probably should do, and just pretty much within the first minute or so it will tell you like, hey, this is your
Where you
next
need to
main
go.
objective.
I think
Yeah.
that's pretty good because if you think about it, the way like this game is, like you could potentially, like I'm just thinking about it, like if I took like a few days off or maybe like a week off or
Yep.
whatever, I might come back and then just be like, hold on, what am I doing? Like I don't know. Maybe it's just kind of that's how it seems to me, but yeah, I could see that being an issue.
Yeah, it was very smart, and like I didn't feel like it was. Did either of you guys feel like it cheapened the experience?
No, not really.
I felt like it was super smart, and it was a feature you could turn on or off, so it wasn't like necessary. But I thought it was like super helpful without being super handholdy.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It toes the line of being a this is like taking the word hint and like really thinking about what a hint is, and they do a good job of not backseating you as a player and being like, hey, here's the direct line. Like, you know how thousands of games nowadays it would just see like you are 5,000 meters away, and if you hold the left stick in, we're gonna draw a blue line for you.
Mm-hmm.
This game's just like, you need to get here. You can kind of figure it out. Normally on the way there, there's like one door that you didn't have access to, but now you have the beam or, you know, something that will get you there.
Yeah.
I think that also is a really, really nice thing about the map. And did you guys use the map a lot? Because I used the map a lot.
Yeah.
I used the map a lot, but I had trouble. I don't know if I went like dumb or something, but like later on in the game, when like you had more of the map like that you could see and everything, it was
It
like,
gets a little convoluted, especially
Exactly.
near
It's
the
like, this goes to
phase on
west.
mines where there's like elevators to the same area within an area. So that one, the phase on mine specifically, have 3 levels.
yeah.
And kind of navigating the map it's a little rough. You can do it. It just, you have to spend some time to
It
figure
made
it
me
out.
think about like, is this map better than the Hyperlight Drifter map? Like that was like, I think that may be the worst map I've had in a game, and I was just like, this is kind of close, because there were times where I was like, this elevator goes to the Magmore Caverns, so it goes like West Maverick, you know, like they have like west, south, and in east, but I was like, I don't know which one is which.
Yeah.
Like, and that was the part. It was like, I need to get to Magmore Caverns. This is the closest elevator to me. It says south, but like I have no idea. Like
Doesn't South line up with South? Like,
they didn't. I don't
If you
believe they had
assume-
they didn't have a what's it called?
but what I'm saying is like top of the screen is north, right of the screen is east. Like, I'd have to actually have the maps up.
Well,
but-
that I assume, but I was constantly turning
Yeah.
the map, so like it was really easy to get like mixed up, and it wasn't like the elevator rooms in particular told you where they were going, but not what the name of the room was. You get what I'm saying?
So I know it would say like, you know, elevator to Magmore Cavern south versus north or whatever.
Yeah.
But what was the other part of that?
So like what I'm saying is like I would keep toggling back and forth between the two, I
Oh,
don't know,
areas.
areas to see, okay, so this one says it goes to Magmore Caverns South. And then I go to Magmore Caverns, so I'm like, this one says it's going to uh over what is it? Talon Overworld North.
West.
West. Are these this going to the same spot? Like if I go here, is it am I there now? Or like that was the part I didn't understand.
I'm a little confused with what you're saying because, like, if the elevator's taking you to Talon Overworld West, it's going to take you to the West
Well, I guess he's trying to
elevator.
say he couldn't figure out on the map where West was on
Yes.
in that zone. That was the issue
I
I had too.
Okay, I get what you're saying, but they do like I'm looking at it just a flat map right now, and ignoring the rotation thing, which the rotation is a big deal. They do actually line up with like northeast, southwest, but it would have helped if they had some type of compass on top of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like a very minor thing because the map, other than that, does a really good job of like telling you all the information. Like I'm assuming you guys all found the map rooms in each of the worlds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like you were able to see which rooms you didn't visit, which rooms you did, knowing like, oh, I need this. I kept the key up for myself, so like, oh, I knew that I can't access this particular door until I have this weapon and things like that. So it was super clear to me like what I needed
That's
in order to
the
advance.
thing I wanted to point out. Just like this game would have been an absolute nightmare. Like, aside from the compass stuff, like, I think this map does a lot of stuff right. And one thing specifically is showing every single color coding for the doors. Because, like, if it was just like, okay, you got the ice beam, now find out, just where to go, it would be so much more difficult than being able to look at that map and being like, okay, here are all the little white horizontal bars on the map. And clearly I haven't been through there, and I can just kind of like pinpoint exactly which of these rooms I haven't been to. And, this game does the general good game design thing of like, once you have an item, to get to the next area, you have to use the item you just got as a tool to progress.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like once you get an item, it's either going to be used in a puzzle, in combat, or something. So like you immediately know how to use the thing. And yeah, you're right. That is like a great game design. Kind of slightly just going back a little bit to the map too. Even when it was like you got a hint and it was like go to this room and it's a single room floating out in the abyss and you have never been to any rooms close to it, or like before you had your map upgrade, it was always super clear which room you needed to go to that you had previously visited in order to get to that room, which was also like I thought like really smart. Like mostly thinking of like boss rooms or like like, oh, I need to go to this area, and it's just like you know what I'm talking about, when it's like a room that you haven't visited anything around it, so it hasn't even populated on the map yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was like, I really, really appreciated, and I'm like, I can't imagine playing this game without using the map, to be honest. Even if you don't necessarily understand it, it just makes things so much more digestible.
Right, and go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say I only had one complaint with the map. Well, I guess it's not the map's fault. It's just the way the game's designed. So when you change your visor or whatever, like you lose the mini map in the top right, and that just bugged me so many times. Like especially if I had to use X-ray or whatever, because I don't know why, but for whatever reason that just got on my nerves. I was like, I really wish they still had the mini map visible during those other ones, but
Yeah, that would be nice. There's not really any like. I don't know why they did that, honestly, unless it was just like, hey, we don't want to obfuscate more of your view for these specialized type of scanners,
Yeah, I feel like.
But yeah, it would be super nice.
I feel like the times I was using the special visors was so few and far between that I was already like, I think this is what I need to use right here, and then I would look and be like, oh nope. But I could see like if you were like, oh, am I facing the right wall? Like, let me pause it and check if I'm facing.
Well, one of the things, I guess, Greg, did you finish the game?
No, so I got to the point where we had to collect all the
Artifacts?
and I got 6 of them, but yeah, I didn't finish.
Do you know what percentage you were at, roughly?
God, I want to say it was like 45 or 50, I want to say.
Okay, so you're relatively low. Marcus, you finished it 65-ish?
Yeah, so I'm willing to bet that I was further along. I maybe collected a few more things than you, Greg. Do you remember how many missiles and or power bomb or what is it, super bombs you had?
So missiles, I think I was around 60. I had 5
super bombs.
health.
Oh, 5 health? Dang.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I was like around 9 health. I had 100 missiles, and I had about 5 super bombs. I know Dante damn near had everything.
Yeah, I got up to 84%, and all that was to say, like, if you're trying to find a lot of the secrets, then that's, like, when you really do use those other visors, especially, like, once you get the X-ray, that is crucial for just finding, like, gaps in the wall or, like, invisible platforms and stuff like that, and thermal also helps you out, just being able to, like, sometimes see beyond a wall and just be like, oh, okay, there's a power bomb expansion here. So from a, I guess, mainlining point of view, there's not very many circumstances where you're really using the thermal and X-ray outside of a few key rooms and a few key areas. But if you're going for 100%, those things become a lot more handy.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I could definitely agree with Greg's criticism that it'd be nice to just have that map, especially because like at that point in the game, you're just trying to navigate the map and trying to figure out what rooms haven't I hit, what rooms might have potential, upgrades
Secrets.
and stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, and what you guys? We're kind of going all over the place, but in a natural way. How would you guys think of the world itself and just the environments and the just traversing?
I'm a really big fan of it, personally. Like, when was this game released? 2003?
2002.
Okay, it was an 02 game. 1 year after the GameCube. Okay. So, for its time, and even for its generation, in my opinion, this is one of the best looking games of that gen. If not, like, the best looking GameCube game. It's definitely up there. And then you also have a good variety of textures. So, some of the textures, obviously, they haven't aged well. Like you were saying, the water's not great. But, all of the foliage and particle effects and, like, faking of reflections and stuff was just kind of uncanny at the time.
Top
like,
notch.
It's absolutely top notch. And, like, I'll tell you what, playing that on an emulator at 4K, it looks really good. It still looks really good. So,
it's the minor and minute details where it's like there's an explosion super close to your face and you see the reflection of Samus inside of the visor. Yeah. There is like you're walking under a waterfall and you see like your screen getting like
water droplets,
condensation on it. Like you're walking through the lava area and you see like the steam rising up. It's really really like really cool, and like it definitely does a really good job of like putting you in these environments. And it's like those things that like I think we had talked about it with like the Tomb Raider game where it's like, when she gets out the water she's like wringing out her hair. This is like that kind of stuff that they were doing like back in 2002. And it's great.
And this is adjacent, slightly off topic, but like this game does the thing, it fixes the thing. In fact, all the games that came after it kind of perverted the thing that it does with the whole like scanning and just digestible text in a game. this game actually like has a contextual reason for all of these scans. It's like, okay, this is just database info, and Samus is essentially like scanning and analyzing. Whereas
you mean
most
like a codex is what you're saying?
yeah, the codex. Whereas most games, like, it's just like, oh well, this character decided to leave a random tape recorder on the
Audio
desk
log.
as they were dying. Like 5 minutes before they died, they left this thing saying, "I think main player's after me. I don't know how much longer I can hold off." Little does he know I'm actually on his side. I'm just faking it. You know, stuff like that. And this game just, by having the whole scanner, visor, and just making that a gameplay element and encouraging you to kind of just look around and like also admire the beauty as you're gathering information, I think that is genius. I think it is absolutely genius, and I wish more games figured out a smart, intelligent way to do that that's a little bit more natural in the context of the world, rather than just being like, hey, I want this player to have this information right now.
And when he's talking about using the scanner too, he's talking about you can use the scanner in the environment to see like what is interactable or get context clues of the story, but you can also use the scanner to like scan the enemies and just the different creatures to tell you. It's almost like a Pokedex style, like here's some information about this creature, this is what they're like weak against, or like this is like a, not necessarily they're weak against missiles, but it's like they have a soft belly, so if you would, you know, like things like that, where it's like, oh, like I think like that one creature that like when you were in the morph ball it ate you up, but then it told you about like its weakness is with its belly or something like that. And like I don't know, I really appreciated like how the game in a sense rewarded you for putting in the effort and putting in like the more you scan the more you got out of it, I guess.
Right, they, at least for the enemies, they always made it worthwhile, and most of like the key research things, those were pretty digestible if you decide to read them. The last two things I wanted to bring up before we swap to somebody else, like I did like how this game kind of does the biome thing. So you have Talon 4, which is this overworld. You have Magmore Caverns, which is the lava area. Fendara Drifts, which is the ice area. The Mines, which is kind of like this underground toxic area. And a couple other places here and there. But there's a really good variety to that. And then the last thing I just wanted to really say in this game's favor was the variety of enemies. And it really, man, I would love to see like the design doc on this game, because it had to be incredible. Where like they're like, oh well, we're making a planet. We need to make like a genus, a species, a subspecies, and it just feels like this very inhabited area with like a lot of very distinct enemies. And then you also have your, you know, like, okay, here's the, you know, variant of this enemy, or here's the ice version of this enemy. But there is at least probably, I'd say, 80-ish unique creatures, foes that you could scan. I might be overestimating, but...
No, I think, like, honestly, I think you're not that far off, because I was like, and that's not including, like, I mean, you can include bosses, but, like, yeah, I would say, like, that sounds about right. Which is wild to think about, because it's not something that I had thought about. Like, I knew there was a lot of different enemies, but just, like, that number is, like, yeah, that sounds right.
Which is kind of crazy, because, like, the only other game that I can really think of like that, and forgive me for bringing up the DS word, but Dark Souls, where they have
I thought you were going to say Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong does have a decent amount of enemies for a platformer.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite parts about beating that game was seeing all the enemies. But yeah, like what everything Dante said, like I really, really like the various biomes and like just the exploring them. I had like certain ones I favored than others, and the other cool thing too is like when because you're doing a lot of backtracking is like has negative connotations, but you're revisiting areas multiple times, and even as you're progressing in the game, like they're changing the types of enemies that you're seeing. Like it's not necessarily like, oh, now you're fighting completely different sets of enemies, but sometimes it's like, oh, now this enemy that you like, now you're facing space pirates at this enemy. Oh, and now these space pirates are the types of space pirates that have studied your weaponry and now are immune to certain weapons and things like that. So I really like how there was a little bit that changed as you were re-going back to certain places.
One thing I want to say about the backtracking is I feel like it's really well done with this game in that, some games you can tell it's like artificially used to just like extend playtime, but like you never, at least I never really felt like they just did it just to make the game longer. Like there's always a reason for going back. There's always something worth doing, and it doesn't feel like, and it's not like a chore. Like I never did it, and I'm like, oh my god, I hate that I had to go all the way back here for something like, I never found myself ever saying that.
I did. I think it was specific. I think the mines specifically, that one was a little bit rough for me to go back to, because of like it was like a very specific way you had to access it. So you were like,
yeah. Okay, I kind of see what you're saying then.
That one was the one that was, I would say, the most painful for me, because it was just like, okay, I gotta go through these 6 rooms before I can get to the part where I need to get to, and in order to backtrack, in order to leave once I go to that spot, I need to either go back through those 6 rooms or go through these 4 other rooms to get to, and like that was always like a thing that I didn't like the phase on mines. Also, just because the types of enemies you were fighting were like way more advanced, and like I think for me too, like I think it's to the game's credit, but like I never felt like super strong. Like I knew that I could like handle like all the fodder enemies, but like I didn't register in my head that I had as much life as I did. So like I wasn't like, I was clearing out rooms every time I went to them.
No wonder.
Yeah,
I was wondering why you said you hated backtracking so much. I'm like,
because like what would happen, especially like later on with the space pirates and everything, is like those like bigger, badder enemies, like especially when the platforming sections, if you got hit by them while you're doing like some jumps, I always got knocked off and had to start over. And so, like, especially later on in the game, when there's way more space pirates, like when you get to the impact crater and like you have to do the Chozo ruins, like those types of enemies kept knocking me off platforms all the time. So yeah, I got to the point later on where I was just like, I'm just gonna ignore it and like focus on the mission at hand or where I'm trying to go. But yeah, like I would say the first. I would say 80 to 90% of this game, I was clearing out every room I went into every time.
I would say, aside from the mines, really, I never did that whatsoever.
It just was like a nuisance. Like the specific enemies were such a nuisance. The little turret guns, those things were a pain.
The turrets I had to take out occasionally, for sure.
The turrets, sometimes depending on the platforming section, like those little spiky enemies, that they were super slow, but sometimes they would knock me off if I like wasn't paying attention. And then obviously, like I said, the space pirates and just those like any form of the space pirates, they were pretty annoying. And then also too, like one of the things that I ran into when I was playing the game was I was really bad at I was bad at combat in this game, because I wasn't great at dodging, so I was like taking a whole bunch of damage. And there were many times where I accidentally, like I got to a new room and I did a big fight, and then I went the wrong path and missed the save point, died, and then I lost like a whole bunch of progress. Not a whole bunch, but lost like 30, 40 minutes of progress. And it was like, well, crap. And then I realized after I did that, all that stuff over again, oh, if I would have went to the left room instead of the right room, there's the save room. And yeah. The phase on mines, man, I hated the phase on mines. that they had a particularly long section in that game where I was just getting bodied, and that stupid invisible enemy, that was a pain.
The invisible elite troops or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Not
See?
the one that flew in that
Oh,
one
the
room.
invisible sentry.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I have no clue what the actual strategy for that was. Like literally the one enemy in the game I just kind of like just sprayed and prayed to some extent.
So I did some reading, and you're supposed to that enemy fight promoted using the free aim, like not relying on the auto aim. And you were supposed to use, I believe it was the wave, the purple one, like a charge wave shots.
Gotcha. I think I used a super missile and just hit him, and luckily I got him. But he was like the part of the game he's talking about specifically. It was like I'd say a minimum 30 to 45 minute run up to that point without a save. So he got me very close to dying after that kind of long extended period of time. So I got lucky.
I died twice, so yeah. There was a couple times too, like just with the backtracking, where it was like I was going through rooms on my last life bar with 50% health, and I was like, "There's got to be a save," because I knew if I started backtracking, I was gonna fight the enemies that I just killed.
Yeah.
So it was like I'm in like a no-win situation, so I need to keep moving forward because moving back is not gonna help me either. I'm like, if I keep moving forward, there has to be a save room, And so like the very first time I fought that dude was in that situation where I was like, well shoot, I have 2 full life bars right now, but I don't even see where I'm getting shot by. And the second time it was like I got to him and I had like 5 life bars, but I didn't know what I was doing still. And yeah. And then of course, like you said, right after you beat him, there's a save point. There was so many times where I died and then I would have to fight that enemy again. And when I fought them, like literally, like there was a save point right after the enemy that killed me.
I got really close to dying once, like super, super close. I think I
You
had
didn't die at all?
8. No, I did have to, I guess, manually reset once to avoid dying. But it wasn't even like, I don't even want to call it my fault. It's like, right before you fight that boss we were talking about, like the second or third to last boss, there's an area with a morph ball where you can go into the phase-on, and you keep having to break these rocks, and eventually it leads to an energy tank.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have the phase-on suit, and I tried to do that. And
I did that too, and I was like, what the hell? How long does this path go for? And then I died.
yeah, because when you first get there, and I don't know if this is like I can't really complain about it per se, but like the way the phase-on damage works is you start taking a little bit of damage, then you take a little bit more damage, then you take a little bit more damage. And it didn't become very evident until like
The very
rock
run.
3 or 4 that you were completely just effed. Like
Yeah. But I did the same exact thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of damage, but there's clearly something here. And then I get down to that bottom run. I knocked out like 4 or 5 boulders, and I'm like, this thing keeps going. I'm like, oh, I died. Oh, shoot. And I was like, I guess I can't do this right now. Yeah.
Greg, did you go down that path, or did you just be like, forget this for
He
right
probably
now?
didn't have enough life.
I was like, nah, I'm not doing this.
Smart.
Yeah. Did you guys have a favorite biome or favorite least favorite? I think we all said like Phazon was probably our least favorite. The Phazon mines.
The snow one's Findra.
Findara?
Fenandran drifts or something like that.
I think that might have been probably one of my favorites. I think.
Pindar is pretty cool. I like Talon quite a not Talon, but I like the Chozo runes. I think those are pretty cool. I was about to say Talon, but it's got that frigate Orphean crash thing, which underwater section. So
Yeah.
I mean, it gets manageable once you get the Varia suit or Varia suit, however you pronounce it.
That's the one that lets you just jump in the water like normal, like without.
Yeah, it pretty much disables all the physics. Just
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with Greg. I like the Chozo ruins, but yeah, what we're kind of talking about is that There was a brief point in this game, especially the underwater parts. I was like, I don't really want to play this game anymore. Like it was dragging, and I was like, this stuff sucks. And I didn't know that you were getting a gravity suit or whatever to. Once the physics of the game broke, I was like back in. But there was like a brief moment where I was like, I don't really want to play this game anymore, because that stuff was. Not only did it, I don't want to say it looked like it didn't look great. It made me think of like N64, like water sections in games, but it just was like it just dragged on, and it wasn't really like it felt like it was the one part of the game where I feel like they. It was
I don't
like
know.
filler, dude.
I don't
like
know.
It wasn't
If, like you had to get there. I don't know if you had to do anything there before you got the Various suit or not. I ended up stumbling there beforehand, and it was kind of a chore. But once I had the suit, it was fine.
It just was like very like, why did they include this in this game? Is kind of how I felt, and it felt like they were like trying to lengthen the game. And I get it too. It is like underwater is a biome, so like they were able to show some new enemies that you didn't like wouldn't have otherwise been able to see. But I was just like, there was nothing memorable about those sections to me.
That music was real good, though.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, sure. But that I would say that about damn near every section, to be honest.
True.
Music.
Let's see, what else? There was one other thing what'd you guys think of the like combat then? We haven't really touched on combat. What'd you guys think of like the combat with the locking on, the different beams, the different, I mean, we've already touched on the visors. And I guess we didn't really talk about it. So you had visors that you unlocked throughout the game. So I think in the beginning you just had, I think it was left on the D-pad was the scanning visor, and up was the combat visor, which was your default. And then later on you unlocked a X-ray was down, and what was the right one? It was the heat.
Thermal.
And then they also did the same thing, at least with the GameCube controller, it was with the C-stick. So up was your normal beam. Right was the wave beam, which was the second weapon that you unlocked that had some slightly different properties. And then left was the plasma beam, and down was the ice beam. So like by the end you had four different four different types of beams. They could all be charged. They all had slightly different properties that they did. Then there was also like completely optional secondary fire options for all of these items. I think I only got the plasma, the one which was a flamethrower, but there was an optional for the ice, and there was an optional for the wave as well. And then in addition, you had your normal or your traditional staples with the morph ball bombs, the missiles, the super missiles. So there was a lot of, by the end of the game, there were a lot of tools at your disposal. But what did you guys think about the combat?
Greg, you can go first.
I liked it for the most part. I think like I think we were talking about earlier with the aiming. I mean, it only became an issue a couple times, but I mean, I liked being able to have the different like the different beams. I mean, you have to use different ones for different enemies, but like I just found myself switching in general. Just kind of depending on the situation. Like sometimes I found the ice, even if it's not an enemy that was like super weak to ice, I kind of appreciated being able to freeze the enemy and take them out with a missile. But yeah, in general, I mean, I like the combat. I didn't really have any big complaints other than like, you know, like we were talking about earlier, when you do have to backtrack, sometimes you run across some of the same enemies. But I would just kind of, if they're easy enough, I'd take them out. But if they weren't, I might just dip out pretty quickly and just kind of get past them. But in general, yeah, I really did like the combat in this game.
Yeah, just piggybacking on what Greg just said. I think the game does a really good job of making use of all of its tools, per se. Like, you start with the power beam, and eventually you get the wave beam, ice, and then plasma. But all of them are useful even in in-game. So, like, none of the stuff gets obsoleted, per se. Like, I think you can have a preference, but at the end, you're definitely having to switch more often. And, what else was I about to say? Just, I really like how the lock-on mechanic of this game works, and just how they didn't force themselves to make a first-person shooter. So many other developers would have been like, oh, well, we're in first person. We have to, follow all of these standards, industry standards for first person shooting, and you manually aim on every enemy. But Nintendo, Retro in this case, like looked at what they had and they're like, well, this game, the focus isn't really on that first person precision per se. Let's focus on just doing the lock on, and then the challenge becomes dodging and also choosing the right weapon for the right occasion. And in retrospect, it kind of baffles me that this is kind of a one-of-a-kind game. I can't think of another first-person shooter or first-person shooting adventure game that has any system like this where you lock on rather than manual aim, and then you have 3 or 4 different weapons you're constantly switching between. Like, kind of the closest thing I can think of is Ratchet and Clank, and that's a completely different beast on its own. That's not even first person, but
yeah, maybe that's. I'm trying to think of anything else.
Yeah, yeah. I can't think of it.
And I just wonder if it's like, is this just an incredibly difficult type of game to develop, or do people do corporations or whatever just they saw the sales of this and like this game for having a 97 Metacritic, which is astonishing. I don't think it sold I think it sold well, but I don't think it wasn't like freaking Elden Ring that's selling 20 million copies in 2 weeks or whatever. So yeah. I just kind of wonder why more games didn't adopt this. What was the actual reason for that?
I think probably some of it had to do with if you think about it, this game came out November of 2022. Why did I say that? November of 20. Starting.
Oh, okay. So you're announcing the Switch Metroid Prime remake that they've been talking about for about 5 years.
No, it's starting it off with 20 immediately just negates. I don't say 2008. I don't say 2009. I start with 2010. But I'm so used to.
This game's almost 20 years old, is what you're telling me. They came out in June, right?
No, November.
Okay, November.
Yeah. So, and that was why I selected this game too. It was going to be the 20-year anniversary of this game. I forgot to say that earlier, but if you think about it, it's this is a first-person game, but this was less than about a year after Halo. And I feel like that was it's funny because I have some Metacritic reviews from 2002 pulled up.
Oof.
And a lot of them talk about the things that people cared about back then.
No multiplayer. Put it. And sure enough,
no dual analog.
Do you want me to start?
We'll save them because now I need to think about exactly what I know. Multiplayer is going to be a big thing, and that was something, if I recall, that they added to the sequel Echoes, which not as well received.
Yeah, so I think it was kind of the deviating point. It's there's two different. Not to say that there's only two, but I could definitely see it being, do we want to be a Metroid or do we want to be a Halo? And sales, reception, all those things, I think the barometer or the metric is we want to be the big game, we want to make the money, we want to be known as a. So I think that it was I think that's why this game is a one of one, is because there were other games that were doing something similar that was maybe a little bit easier to attain.
Yeah.
Not to say that Halo doesn't take work and that's that's why Halo is because that there's so many Halo clones, but not a lot of games that did it. But it was this is easier to do, and this is what people want over something like Metroid, which
right,
obviously
and then
won a lot of.
I was gonna say Metroid was so masterfully done. If they put anything less than that out in the same, ilk on a different console, it wouldn't hit.
Yeah. I think aiming for Halo and failing, you would have more success than aiming for Metroid Prime, and failing. Because at the very least, you have a first-person shooter and a multiplayer, and people, that is enough to draw people in. Whereas, you do something like Metroid and you fail, it's like, well, why do they try to do this? This game is dumb. There's no multiplayer.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised there hasn't been any, at least to my knowledge, indie games that have kind of aped on this thing. Granted, indie typically, I feel like 2D is kind of the more popular thing for just homages to other games for the indie scene, but
I'm sure there are some games. It's just it's 20 years of time between this. There has to be some games that were inspired by this game, and maybe they didn't whole cloth take every single aspect, but they probably took some of these aspects of this game and applied it. Because initially you were talking about the lock on was the thing, the lock on and just using what was the specific thing that you were saying you were hoping that or were wondering?
Just essentially a first person game that is a shooter that doesn't focus on manual aim per se, because this was this was a different approach to how aiming would work in a first person environment. And I guess there probably have been some other games that have a lock on thing, but not to the degree this did, I guess.
Never played it.
I was just thinking about Zone of the Enders, but that's not a first person game, but it has kind of a similar.
A lot of third person games do have this type of lock on mechanism, but I just can't think of a first person one that does off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was trying to think
that has a dodging system, there's probably if I had to guess, there's probably a mech game that does something similar to this. And, Zone of the Enders does have a cockpit view from what I remember. But I think that's about as close as you're going to get. Or a Star Fox when you go into, first person mode, and that's not even lock on. You have a lock on, but it's not necessarily your primary.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Nobody else tried that.
It's hard, man. It's what's that was it Shadow of Mordor game where everybody's like, this thing is going to be the next big thing in video games. Nobody did it.
Oh, the Nemesis really system.
That game, huh? I guess when it came out, but I don't know how people feel about it now.
They came out with a sequel, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was a thing where it's you would assume this thing is the next advancement in video games, and you're gonna see this everywhere, and it's just I don't know if it was too difficult to do or it wasn't viable for people to include it in their games because it was is it worth it or whatever? But yeah, it just did it.
I guess at least on the exploration aspect, and I mean this isn't something that Metroid created per se, but I do feel No Man's Sky and some of that stuff does kind of ape on the, stranger to a planet thing and just scanning a lot of things. The scanning system in this game has been picked up by a lot of games.
Yeah. There's specific, there's different aspects because I was honestly, and I'm probably way off base, but just the stranger to a strange land, I was thinking of Portal and Portal 2. I remember the different goos and how those things affected you and just that kind of stuff in the second Portal. And granted it's a whole different type of game, but and there is platforming and all that stuff, and it's completely different, but those were the first two things that I when I was thinking about this game, and that game kept popping up for me.
Yeah, I can definitely see that with the, it doesn't have the lock-on thing we were saying, but it does have some of that first-person platforming, which is fairly rare.
Yeah, it's the combat in the game is, and it's not the focal point; it is an aspect of the game. Did you guys let's wrap this up. Did you guys have any anything else you wanted to talk about? Like the only other question I had was like about the bosses. If you guys wanted to like if you guys had a stand-up boss or anything like that. Or just talk about the boss fights. I really enjoyed the boss fights. They were all super unique. I thought they did a really good. Like they were all varied and took advantage of like showing you like they were well thought out, well created boss fights. I felt like I don't think there was anyone, maybe besides some of the later fights, that I was like they were like not too difficult or anything like that, but it just like took a little bit longer. There was like more of a like more steps in the process, but I really enjoyed it. I think damn near every single boss fight, which is like a rarity for me.
Anyone in particular that I think I liked them all. I couldn't think of, or at least the ones I played. I didn't get to the last two, I guess, but
Last
yeah,
three?
the ones I played. It's three, yeah.
Are you including phase 1 and phase 2 of Prime?
I'm including the one once you do all of the artifacts, you fight that boss, and then phase 1 and phase 2 of Prime. Yeah.
So I have a list of them right here. So there's Parasite Queen, Hive Mecha, Plated Beetle. Why don't I remember Plated Beetle at all? Oh, it becomes a regular enemy at some point. It's the one with the armor at its front and has like the red little tail thing that you shoot.
Oh, I only wrote down the named enemies.
Mm-hmm.
That had like a big life bar.
Gotcha. Yeah. This is more of a sub boss, so
Because I'm
Hmm?
sorry. I had Parasite Queen, the Flagra, which was the big like sunlight plant creature.
Uh-huh.
I had Thardus, which was that giant golem that rolled around.
Right.
I had the Omega Pirate, which was that one that went invisible. And then it was, the boss that you fight at the artifacts, and then the last two. So those were the only ones that were like named with like their own like health bar.
Okay. Yeah. I thought all of them were pretty good. Some reason I don't really remember anything about the Omega Pirate. Like, I know I fought him. Doesn't he fight like all the other Omega
he
dudes?
spawns all the other types of pirates that have like a specific weakness. So what he did is he had like the 4 weak spots. He had one on each arm and his legs, and you had to shoot those. And then he would go over to the Phazon. He would turn invisible, and then he would like get his life back. So you had to like shoot him while he was getting his life back to stop him from doing that. But while he's doing that, some of those space pirates spawn.
But he would do the same attack as the regular like standard Omega Pirates, I guess, where they slam the ground and create the shockwave.
He did that, but then he also did another one when you were super close. He would swing at you like 3 times.
Okay. Cool. I remember all of them then.
But yeah, I think maybe I didn't like how long the last fight was. The phase 1 part.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. Like, so you're fighting this thing called Metroid Prime, and like he keeps running away from you. So like you'll have a phase, and he does a very video game thing of, oh, I'm this color, so you need to shoot me with this color, and you do that. He'll like get mad. There's some trenches he digs, and you have to go morph ball to go under it. You'll do that again. Then he'll break away through a wall, and you're like, okay, I probably have to do this like 3 times, and then I'll get to the phase 2 or whatever. No, it's more like 7 times.
Yeah, and it's literally like he has like maybe 1 unique attack per each color, but for the most part, it's like the same 3 attacks. It's like super dependent on how far away you are from him. So if you're super up close, he's more likely to do it's more likely to do a physical attack. If you're super far away, it's more likely to do a beam attack. And like I said, like depending on whatever color it is, there will be 1 special attack tied to that. Once you do enough damage when it's a certain color, it like does a charge attack at you that you have to like get out of the way, and attacks you from the other side of the room, and it changes colors, and then you do that twice, and it goes to the digs a hole. Do that twice, digs a hole, and like you said, it does it like 7 times. It's just like a super long, drawn out fight.
The phase
I
2
didn't like
had
the
me a
fight.
little worried at the the phase 2 was super easy until the very last one where it starts spawning like the colored Metroids. And then I kind of
I
panicked.
hated those things. The very first time I played, I was trying to kill the Metroids when you were trying to get to the phase 1 of the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I went into that boss with 2 life bars left
Oh, jeez.
because they kept knocking me off. I was
I
so
kind of
mad.
started to wonder, are they infinitely spawning in that one
They
room?
were because I think I killed like 20.
Because, yeah, I killed probably like 4 or 5, and I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah,
I
they
could have
were
sworn
these
this was the last
Metroids
one, and
gray-
then that happened again.
They were like these gray Metroids that would spawn, and you would do a bunch of damage to it. Then it would like split off into 2 specific colored Metroids, and you had to use whatever your beam was tied to that color in order to kill it. So it was like you kept having 2 gray Metroids attacking you, and then if you destroyed both the gray ones, then you had 4 different colored Metroids around you. It was so frustrating because like you're doing platforming, you're going really high up, and they're for whatever reason they're really good at like getting stuck on you, and like when you would have to morph ball. I don't know. It was very frustrating. I kept getting grabbed mid jump and then immediately dropping like I had like weights on my ankles or something like that. It was so frustrating.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the more frustrating rooms in the game.
I didn't really care for the boss before it, but it wasn't like a super long fight. It was just more so like, I can't attack you, I can't attack you, I gotta wait till you get close to me, But yeah. Do you guys have any other things for Metroid Prime? I think we did a good job of talking about everything. I forgot. Let me go ahead and read these Metacritics.
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I'll say the dates for these. So this one is from 2021. And it says, shame to see what they did to this awesome franchise. Halo is better since they wanted to compete with Halo.
Well, compete with Halo how?
I don't know. This was in December of 2002. This is a 0. No, I cannot say goodbye, Halo, you stupid moron. Where is the multiplayer? Biznotch. Where's the Game of the Year award? The game is incredible, but nothing compared to the classics like Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, or Halo. The classics. This review is in 2002. But really, the only problem with this game is that the controls are weird, but since the GameCube controller is not designed for FPS, I congratulate Nintendo on the effort. Great game. The 0 is just to get the attention of the idiot who said it's better than Halo.
Mission accomplished. You did get some attention.
Yeah, this is 2002. Too hyped for an average FPS. That's a 1. This is a 2 from 2002. I don't see what the fuss is about. Crappy controls, less than par graphics, no multiplayer, and a boring story.
Less than par graphics.
Anyone who says it wasn't
What were they
made
playing on?
Exactly. Anyone who says it wasn't made for multiplayer is just making an excuse as to why it doesn't have it.
Well,
yeah. So there wasn't a whole lot of negative reviews on Metacritic, thankfully. I think there was like 11. So
man, imagine if this game came out. Imagine if review bombing was a thing back in 2002, though.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's like this game has a
but-
2 on Metacritic.
Yeah. I just like how people were like, no multiplayer. Also, the fact that people are saying compared to the classics, and they named 3 games that came out within a year of this game. Oh man. So yeah. Dante, great game, great experience.
Great game, great experience.
Greg, great game, great experience.
Yeah, I'll say great game, great experience.
I would say this is a great game, and I've had a pretty solid experience with this game. I thought I was gonna like this game less than I did, but there was a couple of things where I was just like I definitely tried to see this game from a 2002 lens and not like try to look at it from a modern lens. And so like there are some things that I'm willing to overlook because your boy wanted fast travel at a certain point. I'm not gonna lie. I was just ready
Yeah,
to.
like the thing that surprised me most about this entire conversation was I thought I was gonna have to fight you, and I didn't have to fight you today for real.
Yeah, yeah. Like I would have loved fast travel in this game, but I understand that if this game had fast travel, then um, people would have overlooked a lot of the exploration aspects of this game, which is like super necessary. So like for me personally, besides the boss fights, I didn't really care for combat in this game. And the platforming, I'm not gonna lie, first person platforming isn't my cup of tea. But I did like the biomes, I did like the world, I did like how this game looked, and so that's honestly where I stand on this game. Like, it's not like I definitely can recognize. I think it's the same thing I said for like Resident Evils. Like, it's definitely something I can recognize where it's like this game may not have hit me in all the ways, but I can definitely see why it's hyped and why it is regarded the way it is regarded, even if it doesn't necessarily resonate with me to that level, which I think is fair, you know.
One thing I did want to ask: do either of you have any interest of returning one to previous games in the series, or two, any interest in the future of the series?
I'd be willing to, if at some point they re-release this and like a on Switch and like with like, like redone graphics or whatever. I'd go ahead and give it a shot and try and knock out the other two. Maybe. But yeah, I mean, I'm at least kind of excited for Metroid Prime 4 just to see how that turns out.
Yeah, like I had a lot of fun, which is really weird to say. I had a lot of fun doing the intro for this game, and I had no idea about the chronology of this game, and it honestly it seems doable in a way. Like, this is to me a well-regarded franchise, and it doesn't seem too daunting to be like, like I could probably play like Zero Mission, the Prime trilogy. I've already played Super Metroid and probably Dread, and I would be good. Like,
I think you would really like Fusion and Dread. Those are a little bit more linear.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also 2D, and they kind of have a big, oh my god, what's that game? Dead Cells energy to them in a way.
Ooh.
So
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I enjoyed this game, but I don't really remember Super Metroid, but I do remember enjoying Super Metroid, and like I've played like the Metroidvania games. So like I played the Shadow Complex, and I love that game, and so like I definitely am like more at home in this type of gameplay style genre when it's a 2D game. So I definitely think that I would enjoy those other games more. And yeah, like I'm definitely interested to check them out. I guess it's like a blessing and a curse that I don't have the trilogy anymore, because I definitely could foresee myself like booting up Metroid Prime 2. But I think since
that guy was trying to hook you up. You didn't know it.
yeah, maybe. But I definitely would be more prone to checking out the 2D games now. And like I said, I'm interested, especially with like the reception. And granted, I missed the discussion, but how much talk and people were doing about Dread, I'm like, yeah, I should check that game out. So we shall see. There's definitely, like, having done this, there's a bunch of like franchises where I'm like, I want to dip in and see how I feel about these things, but it's just kind of like always hard to do that, because it's like we're on to the next game. So I wish I did a better job of like checking in on stuff.
It's difficult.
It is. These games are long. Games are fun and they're long. You guys got anything else for Metroid? All right, where can people find you at, Greg?
You can find me on Twitter at Boombox Hero and on Twitch at twitch.tv/Magnegro with a 0 at the end instead of a O.
But you streaming anything? Just Street Fighter?
Nothing. Just haven't even dusted it off.
When's the last time you streamed?
Oh man, it had to have been like 3 months ago.
Oh.
Something like that. It's been a while.
Okay. What about you, Dante? Where can people find you?
People can find me at Twitch at twitch.tv/awakencloud. I have been streaming, oh my gosh, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, as well as Devil May Cry 5. Those are the two games I'm kind of jumping between right now.
Gotcha. Do you intend to stream any of our upcoming games?
We'll see. I kind of make it on a case-by-case basis, because sometimes it's just... If it's, like, not a long game, it's a little bit easier for me to stream, just because I can, with a podcast, sometimes I just have to sneak in hours where I can, whereas streaming, I try to stay to a somewhat decent schedule.
Gotcha. Well, you guys can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Potato Salad. If you like tuning in to Missed Checkpoints to find out about hidden gems, cult classic, and indie games, and share us with your friends, family, and not shitty subreddit communities you're in, comment on our Facebook page, add us on Twitter, leave a review, preferably 5 stars on Apple Podcasts so we can appear higher in the leisure category. I hadn't done we have our next batch of games up, and I haven't officially done the schedule thing, but I'll go ahead and announce those here. So you guys can play along. We are allowing my brother to select a game for this month, and we had him choose a shorter game so we could kind of get back on schedule. So we will be playing the Swapper for April. Greg, were you going to join us for that?
Maybe. I'll let me see how long it is. You said it was pretty short.
Yeah, I think it was like 5 or 7 hours on how long. I think it was 5.
Yeah, I could probably manage that. Yeah.
So that'll be April. For May, it is Dante's game, and it is Grandia 2. For
it's a banger.
you played it?
Oh
yeah, I beat that game before. Okay. Yeah.
Oh snap!
I'm hoping. My plan is to try to knock out the Swapper this week, and so that way I have a month and a half to play Grandia. So that's what I'm hoping for. For June, we'll have Sleeping Dogs, which is Greg's game, so we'll finally get an open world game in. And then for me, in the month of July, we'll have Super Mario Galaxy, which I'm looking forward to because I haven't played a mainline Mario game since Super Mario 64. So,
wow. Not even Odyssey or anything?
No. I did play. I didn't have a. No, I did. That's a lie. I don't know why I didn't get Sunshine. Well, besides I heard it was trash, but I think usually with GameCube I mostly got ports, so I didn't really get any I think the only first party game I had gotten was Pikmin. So I didn't
get GameCube's known for its first party games. What are you doing?
I know. I didn't get any of them. And then I didn't get a Galaxy 1 or 2. I think I played it. I started it. I played it.
Did you at least do Luigi's Mansion?
No, I never played Luigi's Mansion.
Huh.
I had the game. I have the tips and tricks of it with the whole walkthrough. Still got it. But yeah, at one point I was I think I was in high school, and I was I need to play all the GameCube games. So I had a list. I was I need to get Sunshine, I need to get Wario World, and I need to get Luigi's Mansion and play those 3 games. And I never did, but I did get I did play and get Star Fox Adventures.
Sorry, you spent time on that.
Yeah, I was about to say talk about a GameCube game that everybody forgot.
It was fine.
If you had never played a Zelda game, ever.
Like I said, it was fun. At that time, I had not, so... But yeah, we are Missed Checkpoints, and we're out. Peace.